Welcome to the home of forbidden love stories. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. He destroyed me on camera. I rebuilt myself into his nightmare. But when another alpha offers me everything he never could, and I discover the debt that bought me was a lie, vengeance becomes far more complicated than pain. This is a story where revenge tastes like lavender and storm, where two alphas battle for one omega's future, and where the greatest debt isn't money, it's love.
If you're just joining us, subscribe to the channel for more interesting boys' love story. Here's what you need to know.
Part 2, Chapter 1, 6 Months of Silence. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine burned hot across 50 million screens. I hit publish on Chapter 24 of The Alpha's Lie at 6 a.m., fingers steady despite 3 days without sleep. This chapter was the gala. Every brutal word he'd spoken, every camera flash, every drop of blood spreading across white fabric rendered in unforgiving detail. The Omega in my panels looked like me because he was me. The Alpha looked like a monster because that's what Kyung-tae had been. The view counter climbed. 1 million, 5 million, 20 million. Comments flooded in faster than I could read them. This Alpha is a demon. Every Omega needs to see this. Lavender Ghost is saving lives with this truth. Jirei appeared in my doorway with coffee I wouldn't drink, his ginger citrus scent worried. You haven't left the apartment in 3 days. This obsession isn't healthy, Yeon-woo. It's not obsession. I didn't look away from the screen. It's documentation. Every chapter is a scar he left, and now the world sees them. My brother set the mug down with too much force. And when you've documented everything, what then? Will the scars finally heal? I didn't answer because I didn't know. My scent had changed permanently. Sharp ozone where soft lavender used to be. The electric charge before lightning strikes. Even my body was different now. Sometimes I still felt phantom cramps, my empty womb remembering what it had carried for 8 weeks before. I shut that thought down. Focused on the screen. 50 million views now. My inbox pinged. SBS News wanting an exclusive interview, offering to reveal Lavender Ghost's real identity to the world. I stared at the email, considering. Would putting my face to the story amplify the message, or just feed the spectacle? Kyung-tae sat in the empty No Industries boardroom, surrounded by printouts of every chapter of The Alpha's Lie. His empire burning down around him while he studied the ruins of what he'd done. Stock prices had plummeted 40%. Major investors pulled out. The board scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow. His removal as CEO all but guaranteed. He couldn't bring himself to care. Every panel of Yeon-woo's webtoon was a mirror reflecting his cruelty back at him, and he deserved to look. 7 private investigators had failed to locate Yeon-woo. The Omega had vanished like smoke. The door opened. Dong-il entered, placed an envelope on the polished table. My resignation. Effective immediately. Kyung-tae looked up at his oldest friend. Dong-il, I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore. The beta's voice was tired. You need help, not an enabler. Get therapy. Make amends somehow. But I'm done. After he left, Kyung-tae sat alone in the silence, touching the faded bite mark on his own neck. Mirror of the one he'd given Yeon-woo during that heat-hazed night 6 months ago. The incomplete bond caused him physical pain daily, a constant ache in his scent glands that no medication could touch. A package arrived by courier. Inside, a single lavender flower, dried and dead, brittle petals crumbling at his touch. The note read simply, "This is what you killed." Kyung-tae pressed the dead flower to his face and finally let himself weep. My email pinged again. Different sender this time, Jang Woo-bin. Your webtoon changed my life. I run an Omega Rights nonprofit. Can we meet? I want to help amplify your voice. I clicked on his profile photo. The kind alpha from the cafe 6 months ago, before everything shattered. He smiled in the picture, warm and genuine. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Jirei was right. I couldn't stay locked in this apartment forever, feeding on rage and grief. I typed one word. Yes. Part 2, Chapter 2, The Advocate and the Artist. Jang Woo-bin smelled like sandalwood and safety. Everything Kyung-tae had never been. The upscale Busan cafe overlooked Houndy Beach, all floor-to-ceiling windows and gentle jazz. Far enough from Seoul that I could breathe without tasting memory. Woo-bin stood when I entered, and I was struck again by how different he seemed from our first meeting 6 months ago. Then, he'd been charming but casual. Now there was fire in his eyes, purpose in the set of his shoulders. Yeon-woo. He didn't offer his hand, respecting Omega boundaries. Thank you for meeting me. We sat. His sandalwood scent drifted across the table. Clean, respectful, nothing like the oppressive alpha pheromones I'd learned to fear. It didn't demand my submission. It just existed, warm and steady. I've been following the alphas lie religiously, he said, ordering us coffee with easy confidence. Every chapter. Your art gives voice to thousands who've suffered in silence. You're not just a webtoon artist anymore. You're a movement. Heat crept up my neck. I just draw what happened. What happens to too many of us. Exactly. He leaned forward, passion animating his features. Which is why I want to collaborate. I run Omega Liberation Korea, non-profit advocacy, funded by my family's pharmaceutical fortune. We provide legal aid, safe houses, medical care for Omega's escaping abusive bonds. He pulled out a tablet, showed me photos, bright, clean facilities, smiling Omega residents, protest marches for Omega rights legislation. I want to mount a gallery exhibition of your original webtoon art, Woo Bin continued. Full proceeds to Omega safe houses. Massive media campaign. Turn your personal story into systemic change. I studied him carefully, looking for the trap. Alphas always had angles. Why? What do you get from this? Justice. Simple. Direct. My younger brother was an Omega. He took his own life after his alpha mate rejected their bond publicly. I found him. His jaw tightened. I couldn't save him. But maybe I can help save others. The honesty in his voice cracked something in my chest. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Help me make it mean something. We talked for 2 hours about the exhibition, the media strategy, the political climate around Omega rights. Woo Bin treated me like an equal partner, not a fragile victim to be handled with kid gloves. He challenged my ideas, built on them, never once talked over me or dismissed my concerns. His hand brushed mine accidentally when reaching for the cream pitcher. Electricity sparked where our skin touched. We both froze. Sorry, he said, pulling back. But I'd felt it. That possibility of something beyond pain. Woo Bin's expression shifted, became carefully neutral. I should mention, I know who you really are, Shim Yeon-woo. I knew the moment I saw your wedding photos compared to Lavender Ghost's art style. Same delicate line work, same emotional depth. My blood ran cold. I started to stand. If you're planning to, your secret is safe with me. He raised both hands, non-threatening. I would never expose you without consent. But Yeon-woo. His eyes held mine with devastating gentleness. What Noh Kyung-tae did to you is monstrous. You don't owe the world your trauma, but if you're ready to own your story publicly, I'll stand beside you. Every step. For the first time in 6 months, someone saw all of me. The victim, the artist, the survivor, and didn't pity me. Didn't try to fix me. Just saw me. I'll think about it, I managed. We spent another hour planning the exhibition details. When Woo Bin smiled, really smiled, it transformed his whole face into something warm and genuine. I found myself sketching it mentally. Artist's instinct cataloging the curve of his mouth, the crinkles at his eyes. Walking back to my apartment, Jirei video called immediately. Well, how bad was it? It wasn't bad. He's impressive, actually. Runs a non-profit, wants to do an exhibition. Another alpha? Jirei's face filled the screen, expression thunderous. Are you insane? After everything. He's not like Kyung-tae. The defensiveness in my voice surprised me. He's kind. And he believes in what I'm doing. They're all kind until they're not. My brother's Omega protective instincts blazed through the phone. Please be careful. I'm always careful now, I said quietly. That night, I sat at my drawing tablet and found myself sketching Woo Bin's smile from memory. The way his eyes crinkled with genuine warmth. The respectful distance he maintained. The sandalwood scent that didn't demand anything. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Was I betraying my pain by feeling warmth toward another alpha? Was 6 months long enough to even consider? No, I wasn't considering anything. This was professional. A collaboration for Omega rights. Nothing more. I saved the sketch in a private folder and tried to ignore how my traitorous heart had beat faster when Woo Bin's hand touched mine. My phone lit up with news alerts. My stomach dropped. Breaking. Anonymous source reveals Lavender Ghost identity, Shim Yeon-woo, Omega victim from viral Noh Industries rejection scandal. Exclusive interview coming. My face stared back at me from every news site. Wedding photos, hospital photos someone had leaked, side-by-side comparisons with Lavender Ghost's art style. My hands shook as I scrolled through article after article. Someone had exposed me. But who? Only 3 people knew for certain. Jirae, who would die before betraying me. Woo Bin, who'd promised my secret was safe just hours ago. And Kyung-tae, who had 7 private investigators searching for me. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Now the world knows what I did to you. Good. Let them see. Let them judge. You deserved better than my silence. NK. I stared at the message, and for the first time since the miscarriage, I felt something other than rage toward Noh Kyung-tae. I felt confusion, because this didn't sound like manipulation. It sounded like penance. Part 2, Chapter 3, The Unraveling Alpha. The news played on loop. Lavender Ghost revealed as Noh Kyung-tae's abandoned Omega husband, and Kyung-tae finally knew where to find him. He sat in his near-empty penthouse, staring at Yeon-woo's face across every screen. The Omega looked different, stronger, eyes harder. The soft vulnerability Kyung-tae remembered replaced by something sharp and unforgiving. Beautiful still, devastatingly so, but transformed. Weaponized. Kyung-tae's hands shook as he compiled everything. Yeon-woo was in Busan, working with Omega Liberation Korea, planning a gallery exhibition. And there, in every article, every photo of the non-profit's events, stood Jang Woo-bin. Alpha. Wealthy pharmaceutical heir. Handsome, charitable, unmarked. The smile he gave Yeon-woo in one photograph was tender, protective. Everything Kyung-tae had never been. Violent jealousy tore through him, irrational and consuming. He had no right. He knew he had no right. But seeing another Alpha's hand on Yeon-woo's shoulder, seeing his Omega smile at someone else. Not his Omega. Never truly his. That was the poison he'd swallowed 6 months ago and still couldn't digest. His phone buzzed. The board's official decision. Removed as CEO effective immediately. His grandmother's controlling shares transferred to a trust that barred him from any management role. No industries would continue without him. His life's work ripped away as consequence for his cruelty. He'd lost everything. Company, reputation, fortune dwindling from lawsuits and settlements to Omegas inspired by Yeon-woo's story to come forward with their own abuse claims. His empire built on his grandfather's legacy was crumbling, and Kyung-tae couldn't bring himself to care. All he could see was Yeon-woo's blood spreading across white fabric. Their child lost. The Omega he'd destroyed, rebuilt into his judge. In desperation, he contacted his grandmother's lawyer about liquidating final assets. The lawyer mentioned a safe deposit box, registered under the matriarch's name, that Kyung-tae had never known existed. At the bank, they opened it with 2 keys, the lawyer's and one from his grandmother's estate. Inside, sealed letters, legal documents, and a single photograph of a young Omega with kind eyes. Yeon-woo. Before the wedding. Before Kyung-tae had broken him. His hands trembled as he opened the first letter, dated 1 week before the wedding. His grandmother's elegant handwriting filled the page. Kyung-tae, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I need you to know the truth I couldn't tell you while living, for fear you'd refuse the marriage entirely. The Shim family owed nothing. The 500 million Korean won's debt was my fabrication. I paid them that exact amount to accept the marriage contract, to bind their Omega son to you legally. Kyung-tae's vision blurred. No, that couldn't. I researched every Omega family in Seoul facing hardship. Shim Yeon-woo stood out. Pure-hearted, kind, talented. Exactly what you needed to heal from your parents' tragedy. I trapped him to save you from becoming a monster like your father. It was wrong. I know it was wrong. But I watched you grow colder each year, your hatred of Omegas consuming you, and I couldn't die knowing I'd left you alone in that darkness. The money to repay him is in account hashtag 447-8832. Please, Kyung-tae. Make this right. Give him his freedom and the compensation he deserves for what we put him through. Forgive me. Love, grandmother. The letter slipped from Kyung-tae's fingers. The bank vault spun around him. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the crushing weight of realization. Yeon-woo was innocent. Completely, utterly innocent. Not just innocent of manipulation, but innocent of the very debt that had justified his imprisonment. An innocent Omega, sold by a desperate family who thought they were saving themselves from ruin, when in truth they were being paid to give up their son. And Kyung-tae had treated him like a manipulative parasite, had rejected their child on live television, had called the pregnancy a lie when Yeon-woo had been telling the truth about everything. He'd checked the account with shaking hands. 847 million Korean wons with accumulated interest over 2 years. Blood money. That's what it was. Blood money for the Omega he'd destroyed and the child he'd killed. Kyung-tae collapsed against the cold metal of the safe deposit boxes and vomited. Hours later, he didn't know how many, Dong-ail found him still in the vault, catatonic, surrounded by his grandmother's letters. "I have to return it," Kyung-tae whispered, voice wrecked. "I have to tell him. God, what have I done?" Dong-ail read the letters, his face paling with each line. "Kyung-tae, this is. I'm worse than my father ever was." The words tasted like ash. He abandoned his family. I bought an innocent person, tortured him, murdered our child based on a lie my grandmother told to save me from myself. "He'll never forgive you," Dong-ail said quietly. "You know that, right? I don't deserve forgiveness." Kyung-tae stood on unsteady legs, converting the account to a cashier's check with mechanical precision. But he deserves the truth. He deserves to know he was innocent. That I'm the only monster in this story. At Seoul Station, he booked a ticket to Busan. His phone showed Yeon-woo's number still blocked, messages undeliverable, but he typed anyway. "I know the truth about the debt. I'm coming to return what I stole. You owe me nothing. I owe you everything." The message failed to send, bouncing back with a red exclamation mark. But Kyung-tae boarded the train anyway, checked for 847 million Korean wons in his jacket pocket, and headed toward the reckoning he deserved. He didn't know if Yeon-woo would hear him out. Didn't know if revealing his grandmother's betrayal would bring closure or just more pain. He only knew that Yeon-woo deserved the truth. Even if the truth destroyed what little remained of Kyung-tae's shattered soul. Part 2, Chapter 4. The Exhibition of Scars. My art hung on gallery walls like autopsy photos, beautiful, brutal, and unforgiving. The Busan Contemporary Art Museum glowed with opening night energy. Hundreds of bodies packed into the main hall beneath brilliant white lights that made every detail of my panels impossible to ignore. There, mounted on pristine walls, the wedding, my trembling hand signing the certificate. The heat, rendered in fever-dream colors of desperate need. The pregnancy reveal, hope and terror warring across painted faces. The rejection, Kyung-tae's mouth open in those damning words while I collapsed. The blood, so much blood spreading across white fabric. The centerpiece installation sat in the center of the room under a spotlight. Shattered glass scattered in a perfect circle around a single wedding ring, the gold band broken in half. The placard read simply, "What was lost?" People wept openly viewing it. Others stood in angry silence. Every Omega in the room recognized their own pain reflected in mine. I stood at the podium in a simple black suit, Jire on one side, Woo-bin on the other, and faced the crowd. Cameras pointed at me from every angle. This was it. The moment I stopped hiding behind the pseudonym and owned my story completely. "I am Shim Yeon-woo," I began, voice steady despite my racing heart. 6 months ago, I lost my child to an alpha's cruelty, broadcast to millions of viewers who watched me bleed on a stage. This exhibition is for every Omega told their pain doesn't matter. For everyone who's been reduced to a contract, a convenience, a lie. My voice strengthened. We are not weak. We are not manipulative. We are not asking for pity. We're demanding recognition. Justice. Change. The room erupted in applause. A standing ovation that washed over me like vindication, like power, like proof that my pain had transformed into something larger than myself. I felt tears streak down my face, but didn't wipe them away. Let them see. Let everyone see what survival looked like. Woo-bin's hand found the small of my back, supportive and warm. Cameras captured the gesture. Tomorrow's headlines would speculate about romance, about me moving on, about the good alpha replacing the monster. Let them speculate. For once, I felt in control of my own narrative. During the reception, Woo-bin pulled me into a quiet corner near the installation, champagne flutes in hand. His sandalwood scent wrapped around me, comforting after the overwhelming crowd. "You're incredible," he said, eyes bright with something that looked like admiration. "Like more. Watching you reclaim your narrative, transform your trauma into activism. I'm in awe of you, Yeon-woo." Our faces were close, his breath warm against my cheek. My heart raced, caught between terror and possibility. His scent didn't demand, it offered. Safety. Partnership. A future that didn't taste like blood and betrayal. Woo-bin, I. Yeon-woo. Jire's voice cut through the moment like a blade. He rushed over, phone thrust toward me. "You need to see this. Now." The screen showed a message thread, forwarded through a reporter's intermediary account. The only way to bypass my block on Kyung-tae's number. "I know the truth about the debt. I'm coming to return what I stole." You owe me nothing. I owe you everything. My blood ran cold. The champagne glass trembled in my hand. What truth? I whispered. What is he talking about? Woo-bin took the phone, expression darkening as he read. Don't engage with this. It's manipulation, classic alpha gaslighting. He's trying to worm his way back into your life through mystery and guilt. But what if? There is no what if. Woo-bin's hand found my shoulder, grounding. You've built something powerful tonight. Don't let him poison it with mind games. Jirae nodded fiercely. Woo-bin's right. Kyung-tae destroyed you once. Don't give him the chance to do it again. But I couldn't stop rereading the message. The truth about the debt. What truth could there be? My family had owed 500 million Korean wons to Noh Industries. The contract had been clear, witnessed, legal. What was there to know beyond the brutal simplicity of poverty forcing impossible choices? I smiled through the rest of the reception, accepted congratulations and interview requests, posed for photos with Woo-bin's steady presence beside me. But the message haunted me like a ghost. At the hotel that night, Jirae finally asleep in the adjoining room, I pulled out my laptop and searched. Noh Kyung-tae grandmother death. The obituary appeared with an attached photo from her funeral. Matriarch Noh Soon-ja surrounded by flowers, her photograph in traditional hanbok. But my artist's eye, trained to notice details, to see what others missed, caught on something else. The locket around her neck in the photo. I zoomed in, fingers shaking. The locket bore an engraving. Small, barely visible, but unmistakable to someone who'd grown up seeing it on every family document. The Shim family crest. Why would Kyung-tae's grandmother wear my family's crest? My mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. A gift? A trophy? A connection I didn't know existed? The knock on my hotel room door came at midnight. I knew who it was before I looked through the peephole. Some part of me, the part still connected to him through that incomplete bond, recognized his presence like a second heartbeat. Kyung-tae stood in the hallway, haggard and desperate, eyes hollow with exhaustion. He'd lost weight. His expensive suit hung wrong on his frame. He looked like a man dying by inches. In his hands, a thick envelope. I opened the door against every instinct of self-preservation. The debt that bought you is a lie, he said, voice raw. And I'm here to pay what I truly owe. He held out the envelope with shaking hands. And despite everything, despite the blood, the betrayal, the child we'd lost, I took it. Part 2, Chapter 5, The Debt Revealed. He looked like a ghost of the man who destroyed me. And somehow that made it worse. I tried to slam the door in Kyung-tae's face. His hand shot out, blocking it with desperate strength. 5 minutes, he rasped. Please. Then I'll disappear forever if you want. Every instinct screamed to refuse, to call security, to protect myself from the alpha who'd shattered me on live television. But the envelope in his hands, the hollow devastation in his eyes, the way he smelled wrong, cedar and steel turned sour with something like sickness, stopped me. You have 3 minutes, I said, stepping back. Speak. He entered like a man walking to his execution, movements careful, non-threatening. Placed the envelope on the hotel room table with shaking hands. I saw what was inside. A cashier's check with so many zeros my vision blurred trying to count them. 847 million Korean wons. Your family never owed anything, Kyung-tae said without preamble. The 500 million Korean wons debt was my grandmother's fabrication. She paid your family that exact amount to accept the marriage contract. She bought you Yeon-woo. To fix me. To save me from becoming a monster. His laugh was broken glass. And I treated you like property I never wanted, when you were innocent of even that justification. The room tilted. I gripped the table's edge to stay upright. You're lying, I whispered. This is manipulation. I wish it was. He pulled documents from the envelope with mechanical precision. Letters in elegant handwriting. Bank statements. Legal contracts. Read them. Please. I need you to know the truth. My hands shook as I took the papers. His grandmother's confession, dated 1 week before our wedding, explained everything in meticulous detail. The research she'd done. The innocent omega she'd selected. The 500 million Korean wons payment disguised as debt forgiveness. I trapped him to save you from becoming a monster. My scent went acrid with fury, so intense it filled the room like poison. 2 years, I said, voice deadly quiet. I gave 2 years of my life, endured your hatred, lost our child because of a lie? Kyung-tae watched Yeon-woo break apart again, and knew he deserved to burn for it. The omega's scent had turned sharp and wrong, ozone before a killing storm. his beautiful face contorted with rage that was absolutely, horrifyingly justified. "I can't undo what I did," Kyung-tae said, each word an act of self-flagellation. "The money is yours. It's not enough, it'll never be enough, but it's yours. Plus interest. Everyone my grandmother used to buy you. You think money fixes this?" Yeon-woo screamed, and Kyung-tae flinched at the raw agony in his voice. "You think 847 million Korean wons buys back my child? My dignity? The pieces of myself I'll never get back. No." Kyung-tae's voice broke. "Nothing can. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Yeon-woo. I'm just returning what was stolen. You're free. The contract is void. It was never legal anyway. You owe me nothing. You never did." Yeon-woo's hands suddenly fisted in Kyung-tae's shirt, yanking him close with strength born of fury. "I hate you," he snarled, close enough that Kyung-tae could see tears streaming down his face. "I hate that I ever wanted you to love me. I hate that part of me still." He stopped abruptly, eyes widening with horror at what he'd almost confessed. "Still what?" Kyung-tae breathed, hardly daring to hope, to understand what that broken admission might mean. The hotel room door exploded open. Woo-bin burst in, Jire behind him, and I'd never been so grateful and so devastated by an interruption in my life. "Get away from him." Woo-bin's alpha pheromones spiked aggressively, sandalwood turning sharp and territorial. He pulled me back from Kyung-tae, placing himself between us like a shield. I let him, because I didn't trust myself. Didn't trust what I'd almost said. What I'd almost admitted. That part of me still wanted Kyung-tae's love, even after everything. That the incomplete bond still sang in my blood, recognizing him as mine despite every reason to sever it. That seeing him broken and repentant made something in my chest ache with traitorous sympathy. "You've done enough damage," Woo-bin said, voice hard. "He's moved on." Kyung-tae looked between us, Woo-bin's protective stance, his hand on my shoulder, the way I leaned into him for support, and something died in his eyes. Some last flicker of hope extinguished like a candle in wind. "I understand," he said quietly, back toward the door, defeated. Then paused, hand on the doorknob. "Yeon-woo, I loved you. I was too broken to know it until I'd destroyed us both. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth I should have said 6 months ago." The door clicked shut behind him. I stood frozen, his words echoing in my skull. "I loved you. I loved you. I loved you. Too late. 6 months too late. A dead child too late." My legs gave out. Woo-bin caught me, lowered us both to the floor as sobs tore from my chest. Grief, rage, confusion all tangled together until I couldn't tell which emotion was which. "Shoo," Woo-bin murmured, holding me against his chest. "You don't need him. You never did." But that was a lie, wasn't it? I had needed him. Had needed him to choose me, to love me, to protect our child. And he'd failed every test. Jire knelt beside us, gathering the documents Kyung-tae had left. "This is real," he said quietly, scanning the papers. "The debt, it was all fabricated. Yeon-woo, your family, our family, we were paid to give you up." The revelation should have freed me. Instead, it felt like discovering I'd been a prisoner in a cell that had never been locked. Woo-bin tilted my face up, wiped my tears with gentle thumbs. "Let me show you what real devotion looks like," he said softly. "An alpha who chooses you first, always. Who would never hurt you." He kissed my temple, tender and careful. I closed my eyes and tried to feel something other than the phantom warmth of Kyung-tae's bond mark on my neck, still pulling me toward the alpha, who'd just walked away. The check for 847 million Korean wons sat on the table. Blood money for a debt that never existed, for a marriage built on lies, for a child who would never draw breath. I wondered if any amount of money could ever make me whole again. Part 2, Chapter 6, The Alpha Who Stayed. Woo-bin courted me the way alphas do in fairy tales, and I tried desperately to believe I deserved happy endings. 2 weeks since Kyung-tae's revelation, and the check for 847 million Korean won still sat untouched in my drawer like a live grenade. I couldn't bring myself to deposit it, couldn't transform his grandmother's manipulation into numbers in my account. So it waited, judging me every time I opened the drawer for clean clothes. Woo-bin had been constant. Daily calls asking how I was really asking, listening to my answers. Flowers delivered to my apartment. Not roses, which would have been cliché, but lavender, because he'd noticed the dead sprig I kept on my desk. Thoughtful gifts. Art supplies, books on healing, invitations to non-profit events where I could channel rage into activism. He never pushed physically. Never demanded more than I offered. Always respectful of boundaries I'd drawn in scar tissue and fear. Tonight, he'd taken me to an exclusive Busan restaurant perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Candlelight softened his handsome features as he poured wine with easy grace. "I've been falling for you since that first cafe meeting," Woo Bin confessed over the main course, his dark eyes sincere. "Watching you transform pain into power. You're extraordinary, Yeon-woo." Warmth bloomed in my chest, but guilt followed close behind. I was still processing everything. The fabricated debt, Kyung-tae's broken confession, the realization that my entire sacrifice had been built on lies. "I'm broken, Woo Bin," I said quietly. "I lost a child. I'm a public spectacle. Why would you want?" His hand covered mine, warm and steady. "You're not broken. You're surviving, and that's the bravest thing I've ever witnessed. I don't want the trauma. I want you. The artist who turns suffering into social change. The activist who refuses to be silenced. The man who's rebuilding himself from ashes." His words should have healed something. Should have been enough. We returned to my apartment, Jirei conveniently out with friends, though I suspected he'd orchestrated his own absence. The tension between Woo Bin and me was palpable, electric in a way that felt nothing like the dangerous crackle of Kyung-tae's pheromones. "Do you want to come inside?" I asked, the invitation weighted with meaning. Woo Bin's answer was to follow me through the door. In the living room, he cupped my face with both hands, sandalwood scent wrapping around me like safety. "Tell me to stop anytime," he said softly. "You're in control here. Always." We kissed. Soft at first, then deeper as I pulled him closer, desperate to feel something other than the constant ache of loss and betrayal. His mouth was skilled, patient, giving rather than taking. I led him to my bedroom, hands already working at the buttons of his shirt. Woo Bin undressed me reverently, pressing kisses to every inch of exposed skin like he was worshipping something precious. "You're beautiful," he murmured against my collarbone. "Every part of you." We moved to the bed. Woo Bin asked consent at every step. "Is this okay? Do you want this? Tell me what feels good," attentive in ways that should have made me feel cherished. And physically, it was perfect. His touch skilled, his rhythm practiced, his consideration absolute. But even as pleasure built in my body, my mind drifted. To cedar and steel scent instead of sandalwood. To desperate, claiming hands during heat instead of these careful, respectful ones. To Kyung-tae's broken voice in that hotel room. "I loved you." When Woo Bin bit gently at my shoulder, affection, not a claiming mark, my body remembered a different bite. The one that had bonded me to Kyung-tae 6 months ago, marking me as even as he'd denied wanting me. I came with Woo Bin's name on my lips and Kyung-tae's face behind my closed eyes, and hated myself for it. Afterward, Woo Bin held me contentedly, pressing lazy kisses to my hair. "That was incredible," he said, voice warm with satisfaction. "You're incredible." "Yeah," I forced out, the lie tasting bitter. "It was." He fell asleep easily, one arm draped possessively across my waist. I lay awake in the dark, touching the spot on my neck where Kyung-tae's bond mark had faded to invisibility, but still tingled with phantom sensation. The had been good. Woo Bin was everything an Omega should want, kind, respectful, devoted. But my body knew the difference between being made love to and being claimed. Between careful affection and desperate need. The incomplete bond had never broken. Some traitorous part of me was still tied to the alpha who'd destroyed me, still singing in my blood for a connection that should have died with our child on that stage. I was sleeping with a good alpha while haunted by a monster. What did that make me? My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A news alert lit the screen, and my heart stopped. Breaking. Noh Kyung-tae hospitalized after collapse. Sources say former CEO suffering from bond break syndrome. Condition critical. My sense spiked with involuntary panic. Sharp ozone flooding the room. Woo Bin stirred beside me, murmuring sleepily, but I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the headline. Bond break syndrome. When an incomplete alpha-omega bond severed improperly, the alpha's body attacked itself. It was rare, usually only happened when the omega was still alive, still connected, still bound. My hand flew to my neck, to the invisible mark that suddenly burned like a brand. Kyung-tae was dying because I hadn't formally rejected or accepted the bond. Because some biological part of us was still tangled together, and the separation was killing him by inches. I stared at Woo Bin's peaceful sleeping face beside me, then at the news alert, then at my own trembling hands, and realized with horrifying clarity, I could let Kyung-tae die and finally be free. Or I could save the alpha who destroyed me. The choice should have been easy. So why was I already reaching for my clothes? Part 2, Chapter 7, The Bond That Won't Break. Dying felt appropriate. It was the one punishment he couldn't escape. Kyung-tae lay in Seoul National University Hospital's ICU, machines beeping their steady countdown to his failure. He'd been deteriorating since leaving Busan 2 weeks ago. First the fever that wouldn't break, then the phantom pains that felt like his scent glands were being torn apart from inside. Now the organ shutdown the doctors said was inevitable without intervention. Bond break syndrome. A rare condition, the specialist had explained with clinical detachment. When an incomplete alpha-omega bond was severed without proper resolution, the alpha's body interpreted it as the death of their mate and followed suit. A biological murder-suicide coded into their DNA. You marked him during heat bonding, the doctor had said, studying Kyung-tae's chart. He never formally accepted or rejected the bond. Your body thinks its mate is dying, so it's killing itself in sympathy. Dong-ail sat at his bedside now, face haggard with worry. Call him. Tell him what's happening. Maybe if he formally rejects you, it'll break cleanly and you'll survive. No. Kyung-tae's voice was barely a rasp. I won't manipulate him with biology. I deserve this. You deserve to live long enough to actually atone. I killed our child, Dong-ail. The words came out broken. I publicly destroyed him. I don't get to use a biological loophole to force him back into my life. His body was failing anyway. The hallucinations had started yesterday. Yeon-woo bleeding on white marble, their child that never got to be born, lavender flowers wilting and dying in his hands. Fever dreams and guilt woven together until he couldn't tell which was which. He'd written a final letter, sealed it, made Dong-ail promise to deliver it to Yeon-woo after. An apology that would never be enough, but at least it would be complete. The machines beeped their judgment. Kyung-tae closed his eyes and waited for the mercy of oblivion. My body knew before my mind did. Nausea hit me in waves as I stared at the news alert. Dizziness made the room spin. My scent went haywire, ozone spiking so sharp that Woo Bin woke instantly beside me. Hey, what's wrong? Your scent. I couldn't answer. Could only stare at Kyung-tae's photo on my phone, pale, unconscious, dying, and feel the bond pulling me like a fish hook buried in my chest, reeling me toward him against my will. Ji-rae burst through the bedroom door, already dressed. Please tell me you're not thinking of going to him. I can feel him dying, I gasped, one hand pressed to my sternum where the pain radiated. The bond, it's like my body knows. Woo Bin sat up, carefully neutral despite the naked hurt in his eyes. You don't owe him your presence. This could be manipulation, Yeon-woo. A last desperate attempt to. It's not manipulation if I can physically feel it. I was already out of bed, grabbing clothes. The bond never broke. We're still. I couldn't finish. The implications were too horrifying. After everything, the rejection, the miscarriage, 6 months of rebuilding myself. I was still biologically tied to the alpha who'd destroyed me. Ji-rae grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. If you go to him now, you're telling the world you forgive what he did. Your movement, your exhibition, everything you've built. We moved to the bed. Woo Bin asked consent at every step. Is this okay? Do you want this? Tell me what feels good, attentive in ways that should have made me feel cherished. And physically, it was perfect. His touch skilled, his rhythm practiced, his consideration absolute. But even as pleasure built in my body, my mind drifted. To cedar and steel scent instead of sandalwood. To desperate, claiming hands during heat instead of these careful, respectful ones. To Kyung-tae's broken voice in that hotel room. I loved you. When Woo Bin bit gently at my shoulder, affection, not a claiming mark, my body remembered a different bite. The one that had bonded me to Kyung-tae 6 months ago, marking me as even as he denied wanting me. I came with Woo Bin's name on my lips and Kyung-tae's face behind my closed eyes, and hated myself for it. Afterward, Woo Bin held me contentedly, pressing lazy kisses to my hair. That was incredible, he said, voice warm with satisfaction. You're incredible. Yeah, I forced out the lie-tasting bitter. It was. He fell asleep easily, one arm draped possessively across my waist. I lay awake in the dark, touching the spot on my neck where Kyung-tae's bond mark had faded to invisibility but still tingled with phantom sensation. The had been good. Woo Bin was everything an Omega should want, kind, respectful, devoted. But my body knew the difference between being made love to and being claimed. Between careful affection and desperate need. The incomplete bond had never broken. Some traitorous part of me was still tied to the alpha who destroyed me, still singing in my blood for a connection that should have died with our child on that stage. I was sleeping with a good alpha while haunted by a monster. What did that make me? My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A news alert lit the screen, and my heart stopped. Breaking. Noh Kyung-tae hospitalized after collapse. Sources say former CEO suffering from bond break syndrome. Condition critical. My sense spiked with involuntary panic, sharp ozone flooding the room. Woo-bin stirred beside me, murmuring sleepily, but I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the headline. Bond break syndrome. When an incomplete alpha-omega bond severed improperly, the alpha's body attacked itself. It was rare, usually only happened when the omega was still alive, still connected, still bound. My hand flew to my neck, to the invisible mark that suddenly burned like a brand. Kyung-tae was dying because I hadn't formally rejected or accepted the bond. Because some biological part of us was still tangled together, and the separation was killing him by inches. I stared at Woo-bin's peaceful sleeping face beside me, then at the news alert, then at my own trembling hands, and realized with horrifying clarity, I could let Kyung-tae die and finally be free. Or I could save the alpha who destroyed me. The choice should have been easy. So why was I already reaching for my clothes? Part 2, Chapter 7. The Bond That Won't Break. Dying felt appropriate. It was the one punishment he couldn't escape. Kyung-tae lay in Seoul National University Hospital's ICU, machines beeping their steady countdown to his failure. He'd been deteriorating since leaving Busan 2 weeks ago. First the fever that wouldn't break, then the phantom pains that felt like his scent glands were being torn apart from inside. Now the organ shutdown the doctors said was inevitable without intervention. Bond break syndrome. A rare condition, the specialist had explained with clinical detachment. When an incomplete alpha-omega bond was severed without proper resolution, the alpha's body interpreted it as the death of their mate and followed suit. A biological murder-suicide coded into their DNA. You marked him during heat bonding, the doctor had said, studying Kyung-tae's chart. He never formally accepted or rejected the bond. Your body thinks its mate is dying, so it's killing itself in sympathy. Dong-ael sat at his bedside now, face haggard with worry. Call him. Tell him what's happening. Maybe if he formally rejects you, it'll break cleanly and you'll survive. No. Kyung-tae's voice was barely a rasp. I won't manipulate him with biology. I deserve this. You deserve to live long enough to actually atone. I killed our child, Dong-ael. The words came out broken. I publicly destroyed him. I don't get to use a biological loophole to force him back into my life. His body was failing anyway. The hallucinations had started yesterday. Yeon-woo bleeding on white marble, their child that never got to be born, lavender flowers wilting and dying in his hands. Fever dreams and guilt woven together until he couldn't tell which was which. He'd written a final letter, sealed it, made Dong-ael promise to deliver it to Yeon-woo after. An apology that would never be enough, but at least it would be complete. The machines beeped their judgment. Kyung-tae closed his eyes and waited for the mercy of oblivion. My body knew before my mind did. Nausea hit me in waves as I stared at the news alert. Dizziness made the room spin. My scent went haywire, ozone spiking so sharp that Woo-bin woke instantly beside me. Hey, what's wrong? Your scent. I couldn't answer. Could only stare at Kyung-tae's photo on my phone. Pale, unconscious, dying, and feel the bond pulling me like a fish hook buried in my chest, reeling me toward him against my will. Ji-rae burst through the bedroom door, already dressed. Please tell me you're not thinking of going to him. I can feel him dying. I gasped, one hand pressed to my sternum where the pain radiated. The bond, it's like my body knows. Woo-bin sat up, carefully neutral despite the naked hurt in his eyes. You don't owe him your presence. This could be manipulation, Yeon-woo. A last desperate attempt to. It's not manipulation if I can physically feel it. I was already out of bed, grabbing clothes. The bond never broke. We're still. I couldn't finish. The implications were too horrifying. After everything, the rejection, the miscarriage, 6 months of rebuilding myself, I was still biologically tied to the alpha who'd destroyed me. Ji-rae grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. If you go to him now, you're telling the world you forgive what he did. Your movement, your exhibition, everything you've built. Some will say I'm betraying Omega liberation by staying with my abuser. Others will say I'm teaching him accountability. The truth? I smiled bitterly. I'm choosing complexity over easy narratives. Choosing to hold an alpha accountable while acknowledging that healing isn't linear, forgiveness isn't required, and love, if it ever exists between us again, will have to be earned cell by cell. A reporter shouted, "Are you in love with him?" I didn't hesitate. No, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm giving us both the chance to find out if love can be built on ruins, with scaffolding made of therapy, contracts, and brutal honesty. Kyung-tae stepped to the microphone. I don't deserve Yeon-woo's mercy. I'm grateful for it anyway. And I'll spend every day proving I can become the alpha he needed 6 months ago. His voice broke. The alpha our child deserved. I touched my stomach, still flat but not for long. The second pregnancy had been confirmed last week, unexpected and terrifying. This time, we'd face it together, broken and healing, bound by biology and choice. Will you marry him again? Another reporter called. We never legally divorced. The first marriage was void due to fraud, I said. But if we ever marry again, it'll be because we both choose it. Freely. Without debts, real or fabricated. As we descended the courthouse steps, protesters parted. Some cheering, some cursing. Ji-rae waited at the bottom, expression complicated but supportive. He'd struggled to accept my choice, but understood. This was mine to make. Kyung-tae's hand found mine again. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet. You have 20 years of atonement ahead. Maybe more. I'll take forever if you'll give it to me. I looked at the alpha who'd destroyed me, who was rebuilding himself into something better, who would never fully escape what he'd done but was trying anyway. We'll see, I said. And for the first time since Lavender turned to Storm, I meant it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell for more stories.